Hey there, y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. Today we are going to do a shortcut supper that has a two-part meal prep to it, and you're going to love both parts. We're going to do a tomato soup recipe that'll make you say no to a can ever again, and we're going to pair that with a delicious pesto grilled cheese. Now, a lot of our shortcut supper ingredients today are going to be doubled up and used twice, so that's a really big bang for your buck for every single thing that you're going to get out today. So we're going to start with our soup. Our soup is actually going to be something that we're going to make with a few ingredients that you're not going to be used to hearing. We're going to use some marinara sauce and some chicken stock as the base for our tomato soup. These two ingredients are the perfect blend of a smooth consistency and savory flavor to deliciously get you that tomato soup flavor in no time. And then we're just going to beef up that flavor with a few other ingredients. We're going to use some canned tomatoes, some garlic, a little half and half at the end, and then here is my big hitter. This is a pre-made pesto. Pesto is something that I've taught in my lessons. If you want to learn how to make it from scratch, you can find that back in our season of doing Italian dinners in March. This, though, is one of the things that I love to have on hand straight from the grocery store because it saves for a very long time in the fridge, but it's shelf stable, just like a marinara sauce. So this, just a tablespoon, will take you to a whole new flavor ball game. So basil, garlic, Parmesan cheese, olive oil, salt in here, lots of big flavor bombs. And then the only work you're really going to have to do is chop a little bit of onion. So let's get started. First things first, in my soup pot, I'm going to get a little bit of oil and I'm going to heat it to about medium heat. Medium to medium high is fine depending on the heat level of your stove. Different stoves are different. This is a glass cooktop, so medium for me is a little bit higher than a medium to medium high on a gas cooktop. It takes a little longer to get there though, so I just have to be patient. This is what first step. We're going to do oil and onion because when we do a shortcut supper, we need to make sure we do all of our steps in order to make us get the flavor and the finish line together at the same time. So we're going to start by chopping our onion. My oven is also preheated and it's singing to me because once we get our grilled cheeses made, we're going to hold them warm in that oven. My onion is going to get diced, so I'm just going to start by chopping him in half. We always take our fingers and we keep them curled under when we're dicing anything. That way we don't cut our little fingertips and our fingernails off as we're dicing. So I'm going to take the outer skin off of my onion, maybe back down to medium just a little bit. And then I'm going to go through this way. And then I'm going to turn him to the side so you can see, and I'm going to curl my fingers under. And I'm going to go through one more time. After I get about halfway through my onion, I'm going to tilt forward and give myself another solid surface to chop on. Anytime that you're chopping and you want to get a really good stable chop, you always want to find yourself a flat surface. So if you've got a carrot or something like that, you want to cut one edge off, give yourself a flat surface and go from there. Okay, so now we got that onion in. I'm going to get a little salt on my onion so it can start to draw out the moisture. And that's just half of an onion for this recipe. And then we're going to go ahead the next step and get in our diced tomatoes. Like I said, the order kind of matters a lot when you're doing shortcut suppers because the things that need to go the longest have to go in first. So my diced tomatoes are going in. If you find a can of diced tomatoes that has herbs like basil or anything like that in it, that's a flavor bomb. You don't want to skip on that. So if you want to put either fire roasted tomatoes would also be great in there. It would be a flavor bomb that you don't even have to take an extra step for. So take those chances when you get them. Okay, so my diced tomatoes went in and I'm going to let that start to come to a simmer. Those things are going to get all hot and the tenderness of the onions are going to start to make them translucent, and then I'll know it's the next step. So while that's happening, I'm going to build some grilled cheese sandwiches. I've got some sourdough bread here. You can get a good French or Italian loaf for this, but my family just loves a sourdough loaf, so that's what I almost always have on hand. And this is going to be a simple grilled cheese. Now for us, if we are cooking grilled cheese and it's just us and the baby children, they're gonna want that orange pull grilled cheese. Like my baby child will say, that cheese isn't melty enough, and she will send it back if it doesn't have that cheese pull to it. That American cheese or a Colby Jack, they kind of look for that orange. But when you are doing a kicked up dinner version, we're gonna go with provolone, and that's gonna be a really awesome, savory, delicious upgrade on a basic grilled cheese. Now, instead of doing mayo like I do on my regular grilled cheese, we're gonna take our pesto, and it's going to be, I'm going to need to find a knife that probably won't go in there. Watch this. Boom. It almost did, but I'm going to get a spoon instead. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to use pesto instead of a mayo, and in this application, it's just going to give a big flavor bomb to our grilled cheese. So I'm going to put my pesto only on one side. It's such a strong flavor, you don't need it on both. So on one side of my bread, I'm going to go with pesto. And I got out 6 slices of bread. This is for a family of 4, so I'm going to get out 2 more slices of bread because we need 8 slices for 4 sandwiches. If you're making this for a crowd, easily just double this. You can get a larger jar of marinara sauce even if you just want to buy one. And then double your diced tomatoes and all your other ingredients, and you will still be in business. And also another good hint is to take, if you buy an Italian loaf instead of individually sliced, you can take your loaf, cut it down the middle long ways, and you can fill up your grilled cheese that way, like one huge panini, and then do it in the oven with another sheet tray weighted down on top of it with just like a wrapped brick and some tin foil or something like that. Okay, so we've got half of our bread with our with our pesto on it. I'm going to get our couple more slices of bread out so nobody gets gypped in their sandwiches. Okay, here we go. Now, so I'm going to line up my bread. I'm going to do half of my bread on one side, other half on the other. And now we're ready to build. Okay. And my simmering tomatoes and onions smell amazing. As soon as I get this cheese on here, I'm going to put some oregano and Italian seasonings in there just to give it a little bit extra flavor. I also have, remember, this pesto going in, so that's going to add a little bit of a basil flavor as well. If I can get this cheese open. I'm used to having to have the husband for the canned things that have never been popped, but this, woo, there we go. It's like opening a jar. I need assistance, but I don't. I got it. Save the day. Okay, and when we do grilled cheese, we don't skimp. I do 2 slices of cheese on my grilled cheese. And if your bread is just a shape that has a little bit of extra hangover, you want that cheese to stay inside your sandwich. So just break your cheese into the right shape to where you don't get all the gooey meltage out on your pan, and instead of inside your sandwich and into your face where you need it to be. All right, this is looking so yummy. You could also put some tomatoes on this grilled cheese. Know your audience though, because when I'm getting done with this, I'm feeding my 5-year-old, my 3-year-old, and my 21-year-old, and those 3 of my children do not want tomatoes on their grilled cheese. Daddy, mama, and kid number 2 would do it. Okay, so we've got our pesto and we've got our provolone. Always, always give yourself every opportunity to season anything and give it some extra kick of flavor. So I'm going to give my salt on top of my cheese and a little crack of black pepper. And then we're going to top our sandwiches with the other half. And this is going to cook in a little bit of butter and olive oil mixed together, and it's going to be delicious. Okay, so those are ready. I'm going to scoot them onto my tray so they're out of my way. You could also, instead of tomatoes, you could add prosciutto or bacon on there, and that would be delicious. All kinds of ways you could kick up a grilled cheese. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we are going to add in our marinara. And now my hands are slippery. We're going to add in our marinara. There we go, I got it. And a little bit of herbs. So I'm just going to go in, like I said, with a little bit of Italian seasoning, which has some oregano and some basil and some thyme in there. And because I am doing pesto, which is basil forward, I am going to kick up a little half a teaspoon of basil in here. That was a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. The key piece of that is always oregano, just so you know. So about a half a teaspoon of dry basil. And the sooner you can get your dry herbs in, the better. Okay. All right. Then we are going to go in with our marinara sauce. And this has a few chunks to it. I really like a little bit of chunk in my tomato soup, but if you prefer for your soup to be really, really smooth, this is a good shot for your immersion blender. And then I'm going to show you a trick. Never, never throw your jar away when it has this much sauce still left in it. So I'm going to take my chicken stock that's eventually going to go in here anyway, and I'm going to pour it into my jar. Just a little bit of it. And we're going to shake it up because you just don't want to leave all that sauce in there. Got to get it out. There you go. And I am going to take my little potato masher that I have. If you wanted to, you could use a whisk or something. And if I see any huge pieces of diced tomato that came out of that can, I'm just going to mash that down. Because I don't want a giant chunk. I do want a little chunkiness, but not a giant chunk of tomatoes in here. And the longer it cooks, the easier that'll be to do. Okay. So I'm going to get the rest of my chicken stock in here, get my lid on, and then we're going to do some grilled cheese. Everything's in here at this point except for the pesto and my half and half that I put at the end. And that's on purpose because we want the pesto to maintain its vibrancy, and cooking it too long kind of can take that away. And then our cream, you just don't want that to coddle. So you're going to get, I'll just use my potato masher to stir while I'm here. Why not? It was already in there. So that cream will just go in at the very end and add that richness and that flavor. So I'm going to put my lid on. I'm not walking away. I'm watching this really closely, and my heat's going to be on about medium-low. And that's going to go for about 10 minutes and be perfect. In the meantime, let's do some grilled cheese. We already built our grilled cheese, so all I have to do is get some butter and oil into this pan. I'm doing half butter and half olive oil. You could do all butter and that's fine. I just like the little bit of oil, the olive oil flavor when I do anything Italian, just because it adds that extra Italian little kick to it. Okay, I'm going to grab some butter out of the fridge. Typically, as a rule of thumb, I always keep my butter on the counter, but sometimes we go through it so fast that I have to go back to my stash in the fridge, and it's just inevitable. I'm going to go in with about 2 tablespoons. This is for 4 sandwiches, remember that. So this is going to really go a long way. I have a tablespoon or so of oil, and then I have 2 tablespoons of butter. And after the first side goes, if we need a little more, we'll add a little bit more then. I am going to cut this in half or thirds so it can melt a little bit faster. That always helps. Anything that can be smaller to make it go faster, you're going to make that time back if you chop or whatever at the front end of your prepping instead of waiting on something to cook a little bit longer in the end. Okay, I'm going to get that all melted, do a little cleanup, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, we are back and we're ready to get that grilled cheese started. But before I do, I want to tell you, I forgot about that garlic, but I did go ahead and put that in. I put a teaspoon of garlic into our soup, stirred it in really good, and then I replaced my lid. So we got a teaspoon of garlic in there. If this happens to you and you want to get a little garlic in there in the last minute, and you just realize it at the very end, garlic powder is your answer. Always, always. If you forget your garlic until the end, add garlic powder and you will have that garlic flavor. There's you a good extra tip. So we did get it early enough that that regular garlic went in, and it is in there and it's going to be delicious. So For our sandwiches, I've got enough of this butter and oil mixture in the bottom. I'm going to basically dip the first side in and then flip and put it down to where it's got a little bit of butter on this side, so that way it won't have any trouble getting all crispy and crusty on the flip side after I've already got everything gone the first time. So we're going to go in, and everybody's going to get a little butter bath. And then we're just going to flip those guys over. Like I said, once you've got enough in there, you can just flip it, and that first side is going to be bathed in that yummy, delicious oil and butter. So when it gets flipped over, it will already have that on there, and any butter left in the pan will already have started that browning, and you will have gotten it coated before the browning started. Okay, let's flip this last guy. After I flip this last guy over, I'm going to cover my pan with a sheet tray. If you have a pan with a lid that actually fits it, you can put the lid on. That's perfect right here. Grilled cheese you never need to do on high heat. This is a medium-low situation. If you want to do low-low, that's also perfect. You just don't want to do it too high and hot because you'll get burnt bread before you get melted cheese. So we always want to keep an eye on it, and covering it like this will actually help your cheese melt on the inside while the outside is doing its thing evenly. So I'm going to make sure my heat is just nice and low. Now that everything's happening, I'm going to check that in about 45 seconds. You just want to know exactly what your heat's doing before you let it go for too long and just assume. Also follow your nose. Your nose will know in the kitchen when something's going good or when it's about to go awry. If you smell something that ever smells slightly bitter or burnt, run quickly to your situation on the stove, check it out. Always have some water or a lid on hand. That way you can slow down anything or shut down anything that's actually happened and gone too far. So while this is happening, I'm going to look at my yummy, yummy soup and make sure that it is at a simmer. It is coming to a simmer, so I just want to make sure my heat is high enough. That's going to go for about 10 more minutes, and then we'll look at this. Okay, my sheet tray is going to be hot, so I'm going to get a pot holder. I've got some really, really good strong fingers, but we don't need to do that for fun. Okay, so this first side, I'm going to go ahead and look at it. Try to remember the order that you flipped them in, so you can flip them in that order to get back over, so they all have the same kind of general amount of cook time. Okay, so we are just starting to get slightly brown, so we need about another probably minute and a half, I would say, on that one. Let's look at this guy just to make sure both sides. Okay, this guy is actually done. This is what you're looking for. This is the color that you're going for, just slightly brown. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so we flipped him over. That guy's good on one side, but we're gonna just let him go another second to get nice and good. Okay, about 15 seconds, and that second and third one are gonna be ready to flip. Sometimes you will find when you are cooking things that are closer to the interior portion of your burner, especially on electric guys, they're going to cook a little bit faster. So sometimes you do have to pay attention and rotate. If you've got an edge closer to the center of your burner, you may need to rotate your meat, your sandwich, whatever's in the pan, to make sure the interior edge gets on the outside and the other side kind of gets closer to the inside to get evenly cooked. That's what I just saw when that happened, and I said one side is good. That meant the left side was good, the right side was good, the left side wasn't. I needed to kind of twist my sandwich just a little bit, not flip it, to make sure it was cooking evenly. All right, so that first side is good on my second sandwich and on my third. Gonna do my fourth sandwich, get a little flip, and then we're going to cover them back up. Everybody's happy, and good. All right, there's that. We're going to cover that up for about another minute and a half, and before you know it, we'll have some soup and grilled cheese. Okay, y'all, it's time for us to finish up our tomato soup. Last two ingredients going in are a little bit of pesto. Now, I'm going to do a heaping tablespoon of pesto. If you want to do a really close measurement, you can do two really good, smooth, even tablespoons. But when I say heaping tablespoon, I use a spoon like this, and I go in like I mean it. This is, like I said, this is for 4. This is the equivalent of doing 1 regular jar of sauce and 1 4-cup or quart box of stock. So that's how much pesto you need to season that. And then I'm going to go in with 1/4 cup of half and half. And I eyeball that, but you can measure that as well. And then, of course, at the end, we always want to just assume we need a little bit of seasoning. So I turned my heat way down. I'm not going to get another boil from this, so I've got my spoon in, and I'm going to make sure my cream doesn't come to a boil, and then I'm going to give it a last little sprinkle of salt, and we'll be ready to serve. And a crack of pepper. We got to end with a crack of black pepper for sure. If you are a really big pesto lover, which I am, I also could stand a spoon of pesto in my individual bowl to mix in as I'm eating. I love that. Okay, my sandwiches are in the oven. They're about to come out. I took them out about 5 minutes ago, and we just left them in an oven to stay warm. Don't those look delicious? That's the color that you're going for. Yummy, okay? Yummy. I could just take that whole tray and say, see y'all later. But if I ran with lunch, there would be some children chasing me today. Let's get a bowl and try this out. It's going to be pretty hot, but it's worth it to taste a bite. I'll keep those grilled cheese for the kiddos. A good thing to serve with this is a little bit of, other than your sandwiches, is a little bit of nice crusty croutons on top. I also like to take my ends of my sourdough loaf that I get and chop them and just get a little drizzle of olive oil, salt, and garlic powder on them. And then you just toast them really quickly, and they make delicious homemade croutons in no time. A homemade crouton is better than a store-bought crouton every day of the week. A little extra pesto for me, stirring it in. Like I said, if you want to, you can blend this in your immersion with your immersion blender. Do not put this in a blender very hot like this and fill the blender all the way up. Let it cool some. And if it is even still warm, only fill your blender up halfway, 3/4 at the most, and put a towel over your lid, taking your cap off to let the steam escape, because if you put hot boiling liquid into your blender, you'll get an explosion and you could hurt yourself. So don't smooth this out in your blender without those precautions. Okay, I've put it off enough. I'm going to blow my bite and taste this soup. Oh, it is like a warm hug. This is rainy day perfection, or any day perfection. Grilled cheese and tomato soup from scratch. That's what's for dinner tonight in my kitchen. Could be for what's for dinner in yours. Happy cooking, y'all.